Shabbat Shalom. It's been a while since I've been up here. I missed it. I missed all of you. Instead of giving sermons, I've been spending my time overseeing the religious school while Rabbi Rifkin is on maternity leave with her newborn. Now, I've been told that giving a sermon after not giving one for a while is just like riding a bike. Only problem is I actually do not know how to ride a bike. So we'll see. Here we go. When you're a rabbi, it's common for your Christian colleagues to ask, quote, when did you get the call? When did you have your calling to become a rabbi? When I first started to be asked this question, I thought it was funny. As if God would somehow take time out of a busy schedule of being the creator of life, the rock of ages, and the Holy One of blessing to pick up an iPhone and shoot me a quick text message. God redeemed us from Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and then WhatsApped me to say, hey, you should be a rabbi? It seemed ridiculous. What a tedious task for a tremendous divine being. How chutzpahdik to assert that God had a special plan for me. I wasn't called to be clergy. I chose it because I wanted it. There was something in that question, quote, when did you get the call, that was theologically incongruent with my beliefs. Then I opened this week's Parsha, and the title of the page I opened was Vayikra, a call to approach God. Vayikra, it literally means God called. So since we're reading Leviticus this week, and in Hebrew it's named Vayikra, and Vayikra means God called, let's think about that for this Shabbat, and let's consider how we might answer the call. Do you believe in the idea of calling, or of being called to do something? Has it ever happened to you? Jews are relatively comfortable with the idea of collective calling, that we as a people have a purpose given to us by God or by Torah or by history. We accept that we should be a light unto the nations, we should do tikkun olam, we must bear witness to history, or that we should pursue justice. Whatever you think it is, as a group, the concept of a theological call to action resonates. But as individuals, we're less convinced. But let me frame it in a more palatable way. There was a man named Solomon de Troyes. He lived in France in medieval times, and he was a vintner. We know him as Rashi, the greatest Torah commentator who ever lived. Not only is he one of the most prolific Jewish scholars ever, he is also considered the most influential. Your opinions about Torah are probably shaped by his opinions about Torah, and he lived 1,000 years ago. Rashi's job was to make wine, but his calling was to make wisdom. Or think about Moses. Moses had a day job, right? Moses' job was to be a shepherd, but his mission was to shepherd the Jewish people to freedom. So what about you? You're probably a professional something. Maybe you're a physician or an attorney or a finance professional or a teacher or an accountant or something else. You probably spend your days making calls, but are you fulfilling your calling? And before you answer that, there's another layer of this. Calling is not just about the self. Remember, Vayikra is not about Moses finding himself through hiking, meditating, experimenting, introspecting, or thrill-seeking. It's about Moses answering God's call. Moses does not want to lead the Jewish people. He has a lisp, and anyways, the Israelites are basically impossible. They're stubborn, they complain, they build a golden calf. They say they'd rather be dead in Egypt than in the desert with Moses. It's a lot of stress for Moses. But Moses gets called by God and answers the call. He doesn't want to, but he does have to. If you have something like that in your life, something you really should be doing, but concerns about your ability or about logistics or about the difficulty of the task are holding you back, don't let it. Do it now. Think about it like this. The rabbis of the Talmud all had day jobs. They didn't have the luxury of sitting around and immersing themselves in their passion project either, but they found a way around it. When it comes to study, tradition teaches that thou shalt meditate therein day and night. Obviously, it's impossible to fulfill. You can't study and meditate and study all day and all night. No one can do it. We have bills to pay. We have a life to lead. And the rabbis knew that. So Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai said, only to people who ate manna was the Torah given to study intensely, since such people had no need to engage in craft or business. Otherwise, could a person sit and study Torah not knowing where their food and drink would come from or where they would get their clothes? In other words, if God is feeding you with manna raining from the sky, yes, it's easy to study Torah day and night and to pursue your calling. But for the rest of us, we have to make it work, just like the rabbis did. As modern Jews, we have this theological resistance to the idea of calling. And as I said, I get it. It makes sense for us. Moses was called by God, and the rabbis also felt the pressure of piety. And most of us here don't feel that. But I'll give you another argument that might resonate a little bit more. Right now, the world is calling out to us. The world is in pain. The world is calling out in tears. Not long ago, many of your fellow congregants stared into the eyes of refugee children who had fled the Syrian civil war. People just like our children, forced to run for their lives. The world is calling us. In the paper, I read that young girls are being systematically kidnapped and sold in different parts of the world. The world is calling to us. There's an epidemic in our country of people shooting children in their schools. The world calls to us. You hear it. I know you hear it because it is so loud it is impossible not to hear. The pain of others is so loud it's deafening. If we do nothing, we are choosing not to answer. But it's not because we haven't been called. What would our Jewish story be if Moses had seen the burning bush and just walked on by? What if he didn't answer the call? Our world is calling out to us, and it's even more shocking than a burning bush that's never consumed. God does not repair these things. We do. God called on Moses, a human actor, to release us from Egypt. And now the same is true for us. As we approach Passover, let's be like Moses. Let's answer the call of our time and fight for justice. Vayikra, God called Moses. And this week, as we read that parsha, God is calling us as well. May we all respond to the call with open hearts, open minds, and swift action. Shabbat Shalom.